One of the things that makes British English really difficult isn't vocabulary or grammar, it's politeness. British politeness is subtle, it's indirect, and it's often really confusing for people who are learning English. So in this video, I want to show you how native British English speakers like me soften what they say without sounding too formal or unnatural. So let's get cracking. Hey up mate, and cheers for finding this video today. My name is Dan, I'm a CELTA qualified British English teacher, and my goal is to help you feel more confident when you're communicating in English. And speaking of communicating more confidently in English, don't forget to download my free BritSpeak starter kit using the link in the description. Now when it comes to British people, we're quite well known for being polite, but that doesn't always mean being formal. And as a learner, you may understand the words that we're saying, but maybe you don't really understand the tone that we're using. And that can lead to you feeling a bit confused. So the first thing we need to do is discuss something really important about British communication. One of the things that we always try to do is to avoid conflict and avoid upsetting other people, even when we've got to tell them something they might not want to hear. And one of the main ways that we do this is to be really indirect, because British politeness is usually softening what you want to say. And this helps us avoid sounding too confrontational or too strong or too direct, so the other person might not get upset at what we're going to say. So let's imagine your boss wants you to send a report and he says, "Send me the report." You know, it's not wrong, but it's a bit direct. A British person wouldn't really say that. They're more likely to say something along the lines of, "Could you send me that report when you get a chance?" Now the task is the same, but the way that British people express it is less of a command, and it kind of reduces the pressure because we're using a different tone when we're making that request. So here are some expressions that British people use all the time. So the first one is, "I was just wondering if you could blah, blah, blah." For example, "I was just wondering if you could help me with this," right? So this is important because the word just kind of reduces the intensity of the whole thing. And "I was wondering" makes it feel less like a direct request and just something I was thinking about. And it overall sounds a bit less demanding than something like "help me please," right? One feels like a request and the other one feels like a demand. So that's really important to think about. And here's another one that you'll hear constantly. "I could be wrong, but blah, blah, blah." For example, "I could be wrong, but I think we need a bit more time." Now, this is important because it signals openness to discussion. It's not just a command, right? It also reduces the confrontation. I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is that we need to think about it a bit more. And it makes that disagreement a little bit safer. You know, if I just said, "You're wrong," that's not good. But I might be wrong. I could be wrong, but blah, blah, blah. Because "you're wrong" is way too direct in most UK settings, right? Especially work. And speaking of work, this next one is really common. "Do you mind if blah, blah, blah?" For example, "Do you mind if I leave a bit early today?" Like maybe you need to make a request to your boss, right? And instead of telling your boss, you know, something like, "I'm leaving early today," what you can do is make it more like a permission-based structure. "Do you mind if I leave early today?" And it shows that you're considering their opinion, not just telling them what's happening. And it feels more respectful, but it's not very formal. Like a lot of people think that polite equals formal, where in the UK it's kind of polite equals indirect. So it's a bit different, right? And I think this one is one of the most common British expressions. And the next one is also very British. "It's probably fine, but blah, blah, blah." For example, "It's probably fine, but maybe we should double check." Now, this is really important because I'm not saying that you're wrong directly. I'm not telling you that you should go and double check something. I'm just suggesting that maybe it's a good idea. it adds a bit of caution, I'm not directly saying there's a problem, but I'm saying, oh, maybe it's a good idea if we just double check. And I am criticizing somebody, but I'm doing it in a really soft way that avoids sounding confrontational, right? If I say, you need to double check, that's a bit aggressive, right? But if I say, oh, maybe we should double check, I'm not sure, it's probably all right, but And I think British communication in general often hides direct criticism or direct orders, right? And that's one of the things that makes it difficult for people who move to the UK at work, because they're never really sure how to, deal with that information, right? And people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, this next one is really useful for when somebody else makes a mistake and you need to tell them. I'm not 100% sure, but blah, blah, blah. For example, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's due tomorrow, right? And we kind of use this as a way of saying that's incorrect, right? So we do it in this way because it creates a bit of space and it reduces the ego. I'm not saying, look how smart I am, I know the right answer. And it makes that correction a bit easier, a bit more gentle for the other person, right? And that's one of the things that we always try to do. If somebody makes a mistake, we tell them, but we don't want them to feel bad. So we'll often take the ego out of it and we'll make it as gentle as we possibly can. Now, those expressions are really common, but knowing those expressions is one thing, but there's something else you need to know about this to use them correctly. And it's not about being fake or dishonest. It's more about understanding how we use tone to avoid confrontation. And you can take these expressions and you can adapt them to your own personality so it feels more natural for you when you need to express these kind of ideas. But when you use these kind of expressions, it really helps your fluency because you don't have to build every single sentence from scratch. When you're communicating in English, there's a lot of mental processing going on, and this just takes some of that pressure off of you while you're trying to communicate. And if you find these kind of British expressions useful, you might want to check out the BritSpeak Starter Kit for free using the link in the description. It's a collection of 7 PDFs designed to help you communicate more confidently in British English. It's totally free. The link is in the description. So get it now, and I'm sure you'll find it useful when you're communicating with British people. So now you understand exactly how British people soften what they're trying to say so they can avoid confrontation. Now, the next thing you need to do is watch this video, which will explain why you feel awkward when you speak in English, even though your English is pretty good. Now, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back again with another one really soon. But until then, look after yourself. See you there.